In ancient civilizations, death wasn't the feared end, it was the beginning of the soul's most sacred journey. Cultures like the Egyptians, Mayans, and Hindus didn't see death as a termination, but as a graduation. They believed that when the body dies, the soul awakens to a deeper level of reality, one that had been carefully prepared for during life. In Egypt, entire temples were dedicated to training initiates for this crossing. The Book of the Dead wasn't poetry. It was a spiritual guidebook. Every symbol, every spell was a key, unlocking the path beyond the veil. Similarly, in Vedic India, the Upanishads spoke of the soul's travel through realms of light or shadow, determined not by sin, but by frequency. This wasn't superstition. These teachings were grounded in precise, energetic understanding. The soul wasn't judged arbitrarily. It was measured by vibration, by resonance. And modern science? It dismisses what it cannot quantify. But ancient wisdom didn't need microscopes. It had insight, the kind we've forgotten but can remember. These ancient cultures didn't just teach about death, they trained for it. Initiates underwent inner rituals designed to simulate dying while still alive. In Egyptian temples, adepts would lie in complete darkness for days, their senses stripped away, entering states between worlds. This was called the Little Death, where ego dissolved and the soul glimpsed its eternal nature. In the Vedic tradition, yogis practiced yoga nidra and deep pranayama, using breath to hover between waking and the beyond. They learned to unhook from the physical body, not by fleeing it, but by becoming so present that identity expanded. The Mayans mapped the underworld, Xibalba, as a labyrinth of trials mirroring the psyche. Death, to them, was not random. It was a test, revealing the clarity or confusion of one's inner state. These weren't metaphors, they were detailed systems, guiding souls through specific realms, each with energetic laws. Our ancestors knew, the way we live determines the way we die, and the way we return. Modern science, for all its brilliance, often dismisses what cannot be measured, and death, as experienced in altered states, eludes instruments. Yet ancient mystery schools claimed death was the ultimate teacher. The Eleusinian mysteries of Greece, shrouded in secrecy, offered initiates a glimpse of immortality. Participants would drink kykeon, a psychoactive brew, then descend into ritual darkness to witness a symbolic death and rebirth. Those who emerged described a certainty that the soul lives on. Indigenous shamans from the Amazon to Siberia echoed this. Through trance, dream, or plant medicine, they journeyed beyond the veil, not as escapism, but as training for real death. These traditions saw death not as an enemy but as a rite of passage, one that, when faced consciously, stripped illusions and awakened deeper truth. Today, near-death experiences echo the same truths. Tunnels of light, a feeling of unity, timeless presence. Ancient cultures didn't need defibrillators to know consciousness isn't bound to biology. If this ancient knowledge stirred something within you, subscribe now. Your soul may remember more than you think. Among the ancient Egyptians, death was a science of the soul. The Book of the Dead wasn't a tale of endings, it was a guidebook for the afterlife. The heart of the deceased was weighed against a feather, symbolizing truth, not by some external judge, but as a mirror of one's own inner resonance. If the heart was heavy with deceit, the soul would dissolve. If light, it would pass into eternal harmony. This was no superstition. It was metaphysical psychology. Egyptians believed your thoughts, actions, and integrity sculpted your afterlife reality. Similarly, in the Tibetan tradition, the Bardo Thodol, often misnamed as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, teaches that the soul experiences visionary states after death, projections of one's own mind. Fear or attachment traps the soul. Awareness liberates it. These teachings weren't meant to frighten, but to prepare. They trained practitioners to meet death lucidly, with presence, using visualization, mantras, and breath. For them, dying consciously was the crown of spiritual mastery. In the Vedic texts of ancient India, death was not seen as destruction but as transition. The soul, Atman, shedding its temporary garment to move toward moksha, liberation from the cycle of birth and rebirth. The Upanishads speak of death as a doorway, not a wall. The dying were guided by mantra recitations, sacred fire rituals, and meditative breath control. The idea was to remain fully aware during the departure, to ride the breath or prana like a chariot across dimensions. In some advanced yogic schools, practitioners would intentionally meditate into death, choosing the moment of exit in states of pure stillness. They believed consciousness was not bound to the brain, but extended beyond, subtle, eternal, aware. What science now glimpses through near-death studies and quantum hypotheses, these ancients lived as direct experience. For them, spiritual mastery wasn't proven by words or miracles. It was proven in how you died, with fear or with full presence. And that presence, they taught, could shape your next destination. Many indigenous cultures viewed death as a return, not to nothingness, but to source. In Native American wisdom, death was seen as the spirit stepping into the spirit world, where ancestors awaited and nature's rhythms continued. The good death wasn't just about how you died, but how you lived, with harmony, honor, and right relationship to the earth. In Amazonian shamanic traditions, death visions were cultivated through sacred plants, not to escape, but to witness the truth behind the veil. The boundary between life and death wasn't solid, it was porous, fluid. Shamans would journey into realms of the dead, retrieve soul fragments, and return with guidance. For them, consciousness survived, not as a ghost, but as energy, memory, presence. They knew the dead weren't gone. They were near, whispering through dreams, symbols, and synchronicities. Their view wasn't morbid, it was intimate. Death was a teacher, a companion, a mirror. And when embraced, it became a portal to greater wisdom, not something to fear, but to honor. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the soul's journey after death was mapped with intricate precision. It wasn't chaos, it was initiation. The soul passed through gates, faced judges, weighed its heart against the feather of Ma'at, divine truth. Every trial was symbolic. The crocodile-headed demon, the lakes of fire, the hidden names of gods. These weren't just myth. They were spiritual metaphors for inner purification. The dead weren't passive. They had to remember sacred words, invoke divine forces, and prove their worth. Consciousness, in this view, survived through awareness, not belief. The mystics of Kemet, ancient Egypt, believed mastery of the self in life prepared the soul for clarity in death. Forgetfulness was the real danger, not the underworld itself. Modern science reduces death to brain shutdown, but ancient systems saw it as a cosmic examination, not of facts, but of frequency. If you lived aligned with truth, love, and justice, you passed effortlessly. If not, the afterlife taught you, again and again, until remembrance returned. While ancient Egyptians focused on cosmic trials, the Vedic rishis of India described a subtler journey, one of vibration and mental residue. They taught that the soul carries samskaras, mental impressions, from lifetime to lifetime. Upon death, the astral body, sukshma sharira, detaches and moves into realms that match the soul's frequency. There's no bearded god at a gate, only resonance. If your life was filled with fear, attachment, or hatred, you're drawn to lower planes. But if you cultivated presence, service, and inner peace, you ascend into luminous realms. The Upanishads call this the path of light versus the path of smoke. What's fascinating is that these journeys aren't final. They're transitions. Even in the afterlife, growth continues. The soul isn't judged, it vibrates. This explains why ancient mystics didn't fear death. They saw it as an opportunity, a mirror showing where you stand energetically. Modern science misses this subtlety, focusing only on the body. But consciousness, according to these wisdom streams, is never extinguished, only refined. And remembering this truth in life changes everything. Do you believe death is an end, or just the beginning of something our modern minds can't yet grasp?